as far as disinformation is concerned, I've had several. I've seen the disinformation happen several times. I've suspected it on occasions that I can't prove. The Doug and Dave situation, I think there's a number of areas where you could look at that and see that as an attempt to disinform the public, certainly to muck up the pot. What happened was this, that myself, Pat Delgado, went to the BBC studios in Birmingham, and we were in our hotel on the way. We sleep there one night into the studio for it the next day. And it had a phone call from the director who said, there is a guy who's claiming to have seen a crop circle form. Can you give us some questions we can ask that will satisfy us that he has, on what you know, and we'll have him down, and we'll put him in the audience, because it was a studio audience. And anyway, we addressed that. It gave some, what we thought should be sensible questions, and based upon what people had said they had seen when they've seen them form. So anyway, we go to the studio and we go on air. We're told we can't see the guy or speak to him because they want it right, straight out the mouth as it happens on air. It's a live program. And in the studio is this short man. He has certain features about him, but very, very easily sort of recognizable features in the audience. And they zoomed in on him. And here is a man who is an eyewitness to a crop circle forming. And he gave his description, what he said he saw happen. And end of that particular situation. What is relevant is that about 6-7 months later, at my home, I'm back in Andover, my home, Pat's obviously, it's his. It was a little bit late-ish in the evening, I'm guessing around about 9 o'clock in the evening, 9:30. There's somebody tapping my door, and I went to answer the door. My first wife was watching television. I think my daughter was out, I don't remember her being there. I answer the door. Now I'm very good with faces, names, maybe I forget, but that face, immediately, the guy that claims to have seen a circle form in that studio, he's in there. Now with what I know, this was his way of getting himself into the crop circle fraternity as legitimizing his presence to be seen in our presence. Came to my house and he said, I've got to say this, there was a coldness about this guy that I really didn't like. And he just looked at me and he said, get Pat Delgado over. He said, there's something I've got to tell you too. The iciness that came from a man off the street is, get Pat Delgado over. And it was literally like that. Get Pat Delgado over here, I've got something I've got to tell you guys. And I was like, well, this guy is going to tell us something. This is interesting. Now, I know he said what we thought he had to say on television, but there's something more. There's something he hasn't said. So I did exactly that. I get the telephone, pick up, I say to Pat, I think you should come over. There's this guy I described him, the one we saw in the studio. Well, yeah, but he saw, we know what he saw. I said, no, Pat, believe me, take my word. I'm looking at the eyes. This guy's got something to say. So Pat came. We sat there, and my wife now has fallen asleep in the other room. And what he did was he would ask me a question about what we had seen, what measurements were, which countries we knew they were in. Information, information, information. Nothing coming back that way. It's information, information. He's asking the same question. He's asked me the question. He looks at Pat Delgado. Answer. Question. Answer. So what he's doing is he's getting from both of us our take on all these questions. Nothing's coming. Pat ran out of patience at around about 1 o'clock in the morning. Pat looked, he stood up and he said, so what is it you have got us over here for? What is it you've got us over here for? And he just simply went like that. So Pat said, well, better things to be doing. I've lost an evening here, and he was very unhappy. He left. Now I'm thinking, where does this guy go? This is 1 o'clock in the morning. My wife's asleep in that room, and Pat is now disappearing at my drive, waving and saying goodbye, and there's this guy. And as Pat's lights left my driveway, he spun around on me. He said, grab your coat. He said, we're going out. I said, well, you know, now I'm getting a little bit bloody pissed off. You know, what is this character up about? I did put my coat on. I went and I had to wait on my first wife, because I thought if she wakes up and I'm not here, she's going to worry what the hell's going on. So I wake her up and I'm saying, you know, he's the other side of the door. So I'm like, don't worry, I'm going out for a walk. He says, it's okay. So we walked up and down this street into this town, Andover, and he's still asking me questions. And then he stopped on the pavement and he said, as of this moment, you're one of us. I said, what do you mean? And he said, and it sounds even funny coming out of my mouth, but he said, CIA. I said, do you have any credentials? You got something to show me? And he laughed. He said, no. He said, do you think we walk around with credentials? He said, I will only ever know the way we work. I only ever see my boss, and you will only ever see me. And he went on from there. I'm still, you know, obviously I'm still thinking, what is this character? He said to me, we're going to give you a device. You identify well with the public. You are going to be the guy that, what we're going to do, he named people, he named George, he named Terence, Busty, Pat, he named all the characters right out. He went beyond the first, what I would call the first level. He went to other peripheries. And what we're going to do is we're going to remove each one at a time. We'll remove them from the scene. We'll give them maximum exposure. Don't concern yourself with that. Each one will be given a platform. Each one will announce what they think, what they believe, each one. And we'll take them on credibility grounds. We'll take one out at a time. And you will be left. He said, you do your job. Carry on doing just what you do. Just what you do. You would need to do nothing more than one interview, which we will get you maximum media exposure, and we will give you a script. And in that script, on that one occasion, is what you're working for, you will tell the public that this is a hoax. I mean, it could bring me, I can tell you, it would bring me to tears, because, you know, he said, we will give you a device. We will take, you told me the college, which I knew was a government college because I'd been there actually several times with my job at Easingwold. It's a British Home Office government college. You will go there. We will teach you to use the device. You will know the good from the bad, the real from the unreal. And you will open a bank account, purchase some land in Scotland with some of the money that you will get from us. All these things that he was basically telling me that would be good for me, but that just this only on one occasion that I would be briefed for well ahead of time, down the road, you will tell the public that they are man-made. So, you know, well, it was a bloody nightmare for me for days, but it didn't end. What happened with him is that, you know, there's lots involved in this. We got back to my house, and he said, where is the nearest crop circle? And I had to think a little bit, and I was very tired. I'd already, you know, we had a lot of media attention at the time. I was very tired. And close to the end of my telex, had been talk all evening, right into the early hours, and we were now, I don't know, 3 o'clock in the morning or something. And he's now asking, where's the nearest crop circle? So I should have said I don't know, but I thought, well, the nearest one to me is Winchester. Nearfield, where I first saw the first one, near. Anyway, I said this place near Winchester, and he said, jump in your car. I said, look, you know, I am out of it. Jump in your car. And it was like stony. I mean, I feel foolish even talking to you now because it wouldn't happen today. And yet, somehow or other, I felt this guy had a big axe over my head. I was very worried. For the first time, I've always been extremely, actually probably too open a mouth at times. I mean, there have been times when it probably would have been to my benefit to say a little less. And yet here I was, for not any of my making, a man arrives at my door, and now I'm told that this is what you are going to do. I was worried. I'm going to be perfectly blunt with you. I worried the shit out of me. It really did. Anyway, we drove to this place, and I, again, foolishly, I can tell you what happened. I get out of my car with a guy I don't know, apart from a television program, and who he claims to be, and I walked away from the highway into a black field where I could barely see my hand. But I knew roughly in the field where it was because I'd been to this circle many times. And he was behind me, and I'm leading him to where it was. And I don't know whether I've got my take on this, but I don't know the answer to it. I think he was testing something else about me, because he said, we got to the circle, and he said, just stand, face east, he said. And I know roughly the terrain, that I live there, and I face roughly what I think is east. And he stood like this. He said, do you hear that? Do you hear that? I said, no. He said, you don't? No, I said, I don't. And he seemed real annoyed. And it was, I don't think there was a sound there, but my hearing's not brilliant because of this condition I've got. So I do not believe there was a sound. I think he was testing me, like a blind test, as it were. Are you honest enough to say, are you going to go along with the crowd? If somebody says they see a feeling, they've got a feeling, are you going to go along with that, or are you going to say you don't? I mean, that's my take on it. But we left there, and I now thought, I'm going home. And I get to this roundabout, where it's right to Andover, my home. Now this, remember, is a guy that I've seen right up in the country, in Birmingham, and he knew exactly where he was. He knew exactly where he was. He said, I'm just about to turn right. I've turned my indicator on. He said, left. No, I said, it's right. Left. He said, take a left. So I took, and he's on I've got a phone in my car. But, today it's cell phones, but it was hardwired, with an aerial, because of my government job. And he was on this bloody thing all the time. He's saying, we're turning left on the so-and-so and so-and-so. And I could hear somebody, I couldn't hear a word they said, but I could hear the noise. There's somebody talking to him. We're heading down the so-and-so and so-and-so. Yes, I've got Colin with me. I think, what the hell's this about, Anyway, we finish up in Southampton, on the south coast, drive into this block of flats. I parked there. He went to a security system. This is a block of flats which there are many people live in. I've never been there before, ever, but I knew roughly the area. Greeting us inside, there's a security door. You press buttons outside to security number to get in. Inside there's a woman waiting, and she pressed something inside, door opens, he didn't even acknowledge her, straight in, and I'm thinking now, okay, Colin, whatever you do, you've got to remember exactly where you are. What number floor you get off of, exactly where you are. I mean, now I'm in real foreign territory. I have entered somebody else's domain. Bloody stupid. So get up, go to this, come out the lift, up quite a lot of floors, go to this door, and he taps the door, nobody answers. Bangs it harder, nobody answers. And he's looking down, so there's like a letterbox there. He's looking through there, and he's effing and being to somebody. Nobody came. He told me that I was about to meet a person who would be helpful towards learning how I had to read advertisements in national newspapers that would be information about the next stage and steps that were going down, what would appear in certain places, and basically information. So anyway, with all this stuff going on, I phoned the Ministry of Defence, a contact number I had, and their line to me was that the CIA had no jurisdiction. I was perfectly safe, and to simply not to comply. That was all they offered to me in the way of any kind of help. It was simply to disengage. So my instructions came in, my phone calls came in from this person, and I ignored them. I had the phone on monitor. They only became threatening after like about third or fourth phone call I ignored. And then it was, if you know what's good for you, pick this effing phone up, So anyway, that was, I can only say, it might sound a somewhat disappointing ending because I've not seen the man since. I only know that the way it was played out, what he told me would happen has happened. I've seen colleagues one at a time drop away. You know, I think it's fair to say that new people have, of course, since that time arrived in the research. But I have been left there as was said I would. And for people that close to me who know that I made this announcement 2 years ago about a large number of circles being made by people, were fearful that actually somebody had gotten to me and that what I was doing was complying with an instruction to tell the public that these are made by, these are man-made. Unless it is done in a way that I don't recognise, that is not so. You know, I am speaking what I believe. But that was a direct approach by the intelligence community. So I know they are at work. I know in some ways there's parts of me that says, well, they ought to be. But, you know, I just feel that we should have reached, here we are 2002, like a maturity where if there's anything I have learned as a private member of the, you know, a member of the public, it's available. And anybody that wants to know will be told. There's nothing here that is a secret to me. This is all for everybody. So I personally, maybe it's naivety, but I would have thought we had reached a time when the intelligence community, whoever or whatever they are ultimately serve, could have openly, you know, come to the door with a badge and simply let's talk. What are they up to here? They're obviously, this is a deliberate, this is a high presence. I mean, they're letting everyone know.
I know.
That they're here. They're going over the panel. You've got a nice picture there of them going over the circles. I'll try and
Now I wonder
get
who's watching what?
Who's watching who?
Yeah, what was that shit? It's just circling there like that.
You see, he's got monitoring equipment. Look at that. He's coming down there. He's landing on that crop circle. Alton Barnes, a couple of years ago, when there was a symbol that looked a little bit like the CBS television network symbol, looked a little bit like that, in the field, in Eastfield, Alton Barnes, England. I arrived there with a number of researchers, scientists from this country, a French researcher working for the US government, a number of people that didn't want to be particularly seen publicly. They just felt comfortable to be behind the scenes rather than up front. And I say this for a reason, because we arrived there and the scientist from this country, the Frenchman, is filming with his own domestic camera. We already had an army helicopter so close, unbelievably close, and dangerously close, above our heads. All the guys inside that helicopter are filming us, we're filming them. The whole thing that we thought we were experiencing was the military don't want us here. And we got out of our vehicles, we start filming them. There's the crop circle here. And as this helicopter eases back a few feet, a second one swoops in behind him, comes right up, almost hit the hill. The edge of the rotor blades were within 2 meters, the width of this table and no more, from hitting the hill that we were on. And I mean, of course, what is going on here is the obvious question to ask. Well, what we did is we jumped back in our vehicle. There's about 5 or 6 of us, still filming. We go up the hill, and running parallel is one of the Gazelle helicopters following us up the hill like this. Right, when we get this here, we can get a picture of him in front of that.
Oh, yeah. Crop circle
There you
right
go,
to our
crop
right.
circle's right there. There you
Hop
go.
out, hop out.
Hop up. We get out again, and the guy that's got the camera in his hand is filming the field itself. This helicopter breaks away, goes to the back of the field.
I think there's something there. In front of him, there's something. I don't know what it is.
And a little ball of light that he's going straight towards.
Oh, over there? Yeah.
Yeah, some thing over. He's hovering right over it now. Oh, what's that?
You can see their
What's that?
faces.
There's something flashing on the ground.
Under it?
No, under the tail.
Oh, yeah.
You see it?
Under
Yes,
the tail?
I do.
That's their normal light, isn't it?
No, it's on the ground.
It's on the ground under the tail. Like,
I would imagine that the second helicopter, the large Gazelle, is radio communication, and he's probably saying to this guy, it's behind you. Because you can see, the reason I say that is that the ball of light is gone. It was in front of him. It's now, we can see it and we're filming it. It's behind him. But the helicopter begins to back up. So he's got some direction, something, I guess the other guy is saying it's behind you.
He's hovering right over it now. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
Does that move? The white some.
Yeah, right. Good eye.
He's backing up, he's coming over it like this. He doesn't know whether to turn his helicopter on its axis or literally to keep backing up. He backs up, and that ball of light is right in front of him. He cannot miss it. And again, just like that, one frame of the film, it's gone.
There's stuff flashing there. Can't see anything. Ah!
It's coming up behind us here.
Really like a shit to us. I know, we're trying to divert our attention from the flashing.
Do you think that? I kind of think that.
what?
They're diverting our attention.
Yeah, it could be.
The flashing thing is not there anymore.
Yeah.
It just doesn't make any rational sense. But anyway, the balls of light have been seen and filmed now on many occasions.
Speaking of helicopters, actually, and balls of light, you know, I've seen and photographed military helicopters chasing balls of light across cornfields and across this landscape. It's extremely interesting. On one particular occasion, myself and my partner, we sat in a circle formation near Silbury Hill, Avebury, 1999, and watched two balls of light appear near a copse of trees near a particularly sacred site named the Sanctuary. Before it got dark, probably about 10:30 in the evening, before it got dark, two balls of light appeared and just hung in the sky and just gently moved around, done not much, and they hung around there for like until it got dark, more or less, and sometime shortly thereafter, one large, heavy military helicopter, something like it's a kind of like a heavy gunship of some kind, American-looking, tore past us like really fast. I've never seen a helicopter going so quick. And it's really odd. Once it reached, you know, headed directly for the location where these two balls of light were doing something. And as soon as it happened, these balls of light blinked out and blinked on over a woods about, it must be at least 6 miles away. It was like instantaneous, you know, like on. These helicopters just scouted around the area for a bit and took off as fast as they had arrived. And as soon as they had gone, the lights just blinked right back into the original position. We thought we were kind of watching or observing a formation going down that night, but you know, as soon as it got light in the morning, about 4 o'clock, we took off, went over there, and nothing to be seen. Even though the following night there was a formation there, so who knows? We've kind of speculated amongst ourselves that possibly sometimes an actual large geometric shape could be imprinted in the crop without the crop actually going down in, and then maybe at some other later date. You know, so maybe something just comes along, activates it, and the whole thing goes down in seconds. Who knows? But it's at least you know, that kind of fits with some of the situations so far.
In '93, Peter Sorrells and Busty Taylor were travelling past the field and noticed that as it was being harvested, that there was a patch of stubble which looked a bit like a crop formation. When they got there, they found that there was a sort of brown stain, and almost immediately they discovered that it was magnetic. I came along a few years ago and asked to have a look at these samples, which, as we can see here, was quite unique in that you could pick it up with a magnet. I looked closely at it and found that, in fact, that although much of the iron oxide which had been deposited on it had broken off, enough remained between the seed heads, right compacted right against the stem, to allow it to exhibit these magnetic properties. Although claims have been made that it might be an attempt to hoax with iron filings, this most assuredly is not iron filings. Iron filings have a most unique shape and characteristic of their own. It is not poured on or impacted on in any way by artificial means. The iron oxide is distributed into every minute crack, even underneath the outer bracts of those seed heads, so that it could not have been put on artificially. Whatever deposited on there pushed it into every small recess and crack there is on there. I just want to make at this stage the point that this is a fairly high quality, fairly pure iron oxide. When I looked at the samples of chalk and silica that came with these samples that Sorensen gave me, I found that a coating of iron oxide and iron had formed on the surface of the chalk. It had even managed to insinuate itself into every crack within the chalk. It had also fused. Now that requires enormous temperatures, something like 1540 or so degrees is the sort of melting point one would expect of iron. And also fused onto the surface of the iron itself are more small fragments of silica and chalk. These two appear to show the signs of having been heated. The iron within the surface layer had obviously been melted because it had formed into little beads like lead shot. The silica had formed into silica glass, because silica glass is just silica. And if you heat it up sufficiently, in excess of 1500 to 1600, it forms into a glass, a thick, sort of glutinous, slow-moving glass, which is used for scientific purposes for very high temperature work. And that had actually formed on the surface as well. The interesting thing is that although these temperatures, there's every indication that these temperatures have been reached, the seed head showed no signs of having been burnt.
What do you know about science, by the way? Tell me a little bit. What's your science background?
I'm a physicist.
Were you working with the government, did you tell me?
I've worked in government establishments all my life.
Yeah. So you got any insight into what the government is doing?
I haven't got any technology that will do this.
Well, horse's mouth.
Sometimes that can be a dangerous question.
No, he says he knows the government doesn't have any technology that can do
Well,
this, and that's valuable
I know,
to
simply
know.
because I read the technical press. You couldn't keep something like this quiet because we're talking about material coming out of nowhere. And this is.
My first introduction to the crop circles was at a lecture in Santa Monica 11 years ago. And it was given by two very astute British middle-aged men who had been in the fields themselves, measuring, photographing, analyzing this phenomenon. And it was clearly a mystery to them. They had no idea exactly what it was they were dealing with, but they knew that there was something about it that was unique and unusual and mysterious. One important thing to remember is that crop circles don't just appear in southern England, even though that's where the focus has been over the last 10 years or so. In the 1990s, they started appearing in Germany, Holland, Canada, and the United States, and documented in these places as well. So the crop circles are a mind blower, period, okay? There's no ifs, ands, or buts or wherefores about it. The way to experience it is to go there and to be in one and to see them yourself from a plane, to drive around the fields of southern England, to stop at a roadside parking spot in the middle of all these wheat fields, get out of your car, figure out how do I get to that formation that's a half a mile away, and climb over fences, through bushes, through nettles and thorns, walk down the tram lines, which are these lines that the tractors leave that you see in all the fields, and go into the circle. And that experience in and of itself cannot be duplicated in any other manner. There's no other way of talking about the crop circles when you start talking about what are they really like. You know, it's going there and being inside of them. Until there is some way to verify the authenticity of any particular formation or any particular crop circle, there will always be the argument or the suspicion that, well, that was man-made, and that's not a real one, that's a fake one. There's always this back and forth constantly because people just don't want to deal with what it means to say it's real and we don't know what makes it. We don't know where it's from and we don't know how it's made. It's just too difficult. It's called dealing with the unknown. To hoax a crop circle, there's a few requirements that have to be met. One is it has to be done at night because the whole idea is that you're fooling people. So you have to do it at night. You have to do it all at once because you can't leave one half finished because people see it the next day. If they see a half finished crop circle, they'll know somebody's making it. And you have to finish by early morning because in the summertime, the croppies are out there at 4 o'clock in the morning driving around looking for new crop circles. So basically you have 5 hours to make it in the dark, perfect, no mistakes, and without getting caught. Most of the time when people fake things, there's a payoff. There's some kind of a payoff. There's recognition, there's acknowledgement, there's profit. Faking crop circles has none of those. So why do it? And sure, maybe do it once, but 200 a year, every year, it doesn't make any sense. The crop circles are an unknown phenomenon from the standpoint that nobody knows who makes them, how they're made, or why they're made. So those three things alone, unanswered, tend to stimulate, a lot of curiosity. What are these things? The difference between the UFO phenomena and the crop circle phenomena is that in the UFO world, if an observer sees something, it's generally fleeting. It comes and goes. It's a light in the sky. It's an unusual experience that can't be explained. It's some anomalous combination of circumstances that is extremely unusual. The crop circles have a similar component to them. They're very unusual, they're unexplained, they're enigmatic. The difference between UFOs and crop circles is that the crop circles are there for 2, 3, 4 weeks until the wheat is harvested by the farmer. So you have a chance to live with, to sit with, to observe over a much longer period of time a very unusual, what in the UFO world would be a fleeting moment, in the crop circle world is an entire summer. Summer after summer after summer. So the opportunity to study the phenomenology is much greater with the crop circles because they're there over a long period of time. One of the things I've noticed with dealing with people who have been researching the crop circles for a long time is that they're all interested in what is the truth, what really makes this happen. And as a result of being willing to do that, they're pretty aware people. They are students of expanded consciousness. And I was wondering why that was. And somebody said to me, well, as soon as you start bridging into the unknown, as soon as you start asking why, you create an almost unavoidable consciousness transformation. because you're opening yourself up to a new aspect of the world. We have heard stories from farmers that they were discovering crop circles on their land when they were children. Simple, plain circles, 1, 2, 3 of them, relatively small, 10, 12, 15 feet in diameter. Farmers would come upon them, usually when they were harvesting. They wouldn't even know that they were there because they wouldn't be looking for them. And they'd come across these circular impressions on the land and just mow them down. They were just anomalies. Nobody really knew what they meant. We have anecdotal accounts of this going back into the 1920s. These farmers are not happy about the fact that these things occur on their land overnight with no explanation. And for a number of years, the whole idea was, well, they're made by kids, they're pranks. They're made by kids on the way home from the pub at night. And that was enough to sort of satisfy everybody's need to know, so to speak. And the fact of the matter is that the farmers really don't know what to do with this. There was a formation last year that was the biggest formation that's ever appeared. It was 409 circles. It was huge. The farmer who owned the field that this formation appeared on has had other formations on his land before, but this was way beyond anything that anybody had ever seen. It's the biggest formation ever. And I met him, and he was just blown away. He didn't want to talk on camera. He didn't really want to talk to anybody. But you could see by the look in his eyes that he was just stunned and really just did not know what to say about it. And clearly was convinced that nobody had come on his land and made it. The crop circles that appear in southern England appear in a relatively small geographic area. Since they've been appearing, a number of people have moved there and lived there really with the primary intent of being there to study them. At this point, there's 200 people, I would say, that I would qualify as competent, committed, dedicated researchers. People who think enough of this phenomena to study it, to measure it, to photograph it, to draw it, to analyze it. It's amazing the people that you'll meet, because you meet people from all over the world. Japanese, Europeans, Americans, South Americans, Asians. Nobody has any answers. Nobody really has any solutions. But there's tremendous curiosity. And there's a common interest. There's a common interest in something that is very phenomenal and very unusual. So most of the people that show up there are educated, intelligent, aware, open-minded. And because of this international sort of characteristic and all of those qualities, those human qualities, you have a pretty nice sort of social milieu.
These things are footprints of intelligences.
A mutual exploration of what is possible.
To understand the message is to assume there might be a message.
The plants were beautifully swirled around.
As you can see, it's a 90-degree bend.
What makes crop circles? It's an impossible question.
There were scientists, they were out there with all sorts of equipment. They had cameras, they had radar, they had other measuring devices.
We got a 25-minute gap where 140 circles appeared.
I think we're talking about other civilizations who are not based on Earth.
It seems to locate where there's water.
These shapes that we're seeing were actually shadows of a higher dimensional object.
And I saw this object come into view.
We have on film this ball of light.
Then it took off.
It might be supernatural, I don't know for sure.
And how did they get away with it? How are they not caught? How have they done it?
They don't practice, there's never a half-finished one, no mistakes.
It's just here, and it arrived in a few hours in perfect condition.
this boat.